Hello YouTube, it's Carlos the Rook, and I'm coming to bring you a game I play online. First, before I go to the game, I wanted to share my stats seen on chess.com because yesterday I finally reached one of my biggest milestones. My goal was to reach 2,000 on chess.com, and as you can see, my rating is 2007. So I finally reached a major milestone and hit a big time goal. And you see, I played a total of 801 games, rating 2007, and it gave me 52% wins, 40% losses, 8% draws. So I finally hit a milestone, and I am extremely happy. Now, let's go to the game. In the game, I'm playing Women's FIDE Master Seraphima. She's currently rated 1997 because of a loss to me, but she was over 2000 when we played. And as you see here, my accuracy rating was 86.8, hers was 73.5. I had 2 greats, 11 best, 1 mistake, 1 miss. She had 11 best, 3 mistakes, 1 miss. No blunders from either of us. I played at a 2300 level, they gave her an 1800 level. So let's start the review. I start off with my e4. She go knight c6. I go d4. And here she hit e5. So I go d5, hitting at the knight. She fade back knight ce7. And here I go c4. So my idea here was to create a queen's gambit structure in like the King's Indian defenses with the pawns on e4, d5, and c4. And in any type of structures you want to play on the queen side. So that's what I created. Now she went knight g6, bringing her knight to a more favorable square. This lets her develop the bishop and get the other knight out. So I go knight c3, developing my knight. It wanted me to go bishop e3, but I don't really think it's a big difference in the moves. Well, maybe it was, because that would have stopped bishop c5. So now that's why bishop e3 was warranted. Now I go knight f3, bringing my other knight out. And here she go knight on knight on g to e7. And the engine wanted her to bring the knight to f6 where it would have been more active. It would have been putting pressure on the e4 pawn. On e7, the knight's doing absolutely nothing. But after she castled, maybe she was thinking of maybe an f5 push after maybe d6. Was that an idea? So here I went bishop d3. And the engine didn't want that. It wanted me to start pressuring along the flank, hitting at that, drive that knight off of the square. And here she goes d6, so she can get the light square bishop out. And I immediately go h3, because I don't want that bishop pinning my knight, making it so my queen can't move. And she castles. And the engine wanted a5 here for her to put pressure on the queen side. And I castle, and once again, it wanted me to run the pawn up the board, pushing that knight away from the g6 square. She go bishop d7, a developing move, getting her pieces out. And now I go a3 with the idea of b4, hitting that dark square bishop. Now she go a5 to stop my idea. That was an excellent move. And so now I reroute my bishop to g5, pinning the knight, and trying to force some weaknesses in her structure, trying to force her to do an f6. And she does. So I bring the bishop back. I didn't want to go bishop e3 because then she could have traded the bishops and it would have doubled up my pawns. But the engine is okay with that because then it opens up the file for the rook. But I was thinking maybe bringing the knight here, the king over, and f4, using this pawn to crack black's pawn center. And here she goes f5. So f5 challenges my e4 pawn. and I take, because I didn't want her to go f4 and just close down the position. So I felt like taking was better. She takes with the bishop. I take back. She takes with the knight. And now I blockade the square with my knight. Knights are very good for blockading squares, stopping pawns from pushing. And here she goes, knight on f to h4. And that's a huge mistake because that's going to allow me to do a maneuver where I can get my knight to e6 via g5. And here's my first great move. I decline the trade because I'm spying that my knight wants an outpost on e6. That'd be a better square for it. So she moved her queen to e8, trying to get her queen over to the king side and put some pressure. I guess she's thinking that she got a rook f-file open with the rook and two knights bearing down on my king. And if her queen get over there, she can add more pressure. I put my knight on e6. I thought it was correct to do it this way instead of capturing the bishop on c5. Because I can capture that later. I'm going to hit the rook, force the rook to move, losing the tempo, and then I take the bishop. And I can take twice and get a pawn. And you know how Yasa says, a pawn is a pawn. Pawn grabbers, you're anonymous. So she moves the rook up. And I go ahead and take here. I saw the move queen to g4. Hitting the knight and the bishop. I mean the knight and the rook. But I thought I would rather take the bishop and get the pawn. Get her bishop off the board. And she captured back. And I capture. And here the engine wanted me to go queen g4 once again. I was thinking about getting the pawn, and I can always go back to queen e6 and then go queen g4 later. And she go b6. The engine wants her to take. Let's show the miss. So it wants her to sack the knight. I take back, and then what's the play? Maybe knight to f4 check. I take, she take. The king is open. But I don't see no killing blow. I can just step my king over to h2 and bring a rook to the g file. The queen can go h5. I don't understand. So I go back to e6 with my knight. An excellent outpost, and where the knight is just controlling the board. And I'm also threatening the knight to hit c7, even though I missed it. I see it now. I missed it at the time. And she brings her knight in, trying to trade off my knight. So I take it with my bishop. She takes back with her pawn. And now I fork the queen and the rook. I actually think I might have had this fork before I took that bishop on c5. Hold on, let me go back. Yeah, I had the fork here. I had that fork here. Before I captured that pawn, I hit a fork. And I just completely missed it. So I seen the fork. I also seen queen. I seen this queen g4 hitting the knight and the rook at the same time. I wasn't sure how she would respond to this, but I just felt like going with the fork was better. Because at this time I realized I was playing a FIDE master and I was kind of nervous. So I just wanted to get the fork and gain material advantage. So that's what the engine recommends. She move a queen to e7, protect the knight protects the rook, and I just get a pawn. So I took on c7, even though I seen the queen g4 move. And she moves to queen g6, threatening checkmate on g2. So I go queen g4, my next great move, blocking the check and forcing a queen trade. She moves her rook over to threaten my knight. I move my knight back to e6. They wanted me to take her knight, but I didn't want to trade the two knights. I wanted this outpost. I don't want to get that up just yet. So she takes, I take back. The rook moves to e5. And here I went b3. And my idea was to protect this pawn, the c4 pawn, because once that pawn falls, I felt like this pawn would fall as well. And I want to keep my passed pawn. So now it's connected. And here she goes f3, trying to break into my structure. And I go g3, declining to take the pawn. I'm not going to give her that pawn and give her initiative. Kicking the knight out of my house. The knight retreats. And now I want to trade rooks. I want to get these rooks off the board. I'm up. I got connected past pawns. I'm feeling real good here. So I just need to simplify and execute. So she goes a4. That was a really, really good move because now she's going to break up my pawn structure because now my pawns are going to fall. So I went for d6. And my idea here is if I would have took her rook, she takes back with the knight and she stops my pawn from going forward. My pawn doesn't hit d7. The knight can blockade it. So if she takes my rook, I take her back and my pawn can move forward. And my pawn is only 2 squares from queening now. So this puts pressure on her. And she can't go rook d8 blocking the pawn that way because my knight would just take her. And if she sacked the rook for the knight, then I take back and I still got this pressure and I win the exchange and I'm already up several pawns. I think 2, 4, 5, 3, 6. I'm up 1 pawn already. So there's that. So she does just that. She sacks the rook. I take back. She moves with a king to hit my rook. And I fade the rook back. And the reason I want the rook back to e3, I'm hitting the f pawn. And if she takes my pawn on b3, I can take back with the rook, come back to the her b pawn, and get behind the king, putting pressure that way. So she takes the pawn. I slide this rook over, because once again, I want this rook to take this pawn, and also it's restricting the king from coming over. I don't want the king to come over and get by this pawn. So she doesn't take the c4 pawn, she moves over for this pawn. If you take that pawn, this pawn is running. I take this pawn with this rook. She takes that. I take the pawn with check. She moves to e6. I check her again. She moves over to f6. Then I move my rook up. And my idea here is I want to double up the rooks and take this b pawn. Once I do that, I'm also threatening to trade rooks. And once I get her rook off, it's a rook against knight. And I got 2 passed pawns on the queen side. And she's never going to be able to stop both of those pawns with just a king and a knight. My rook would be able to push one of these pawns through. And she has to sack a knight for a pawn. And then another pawn still gets through in queen. So this is just a completely losing position. You see it has white up 5.26. And she makes a blunder. She goes over here trying to steal a pawn. And rook f5 is checkmate. So I finally did it. I reached my goal of 2,000 and I beat a FIDE master at the same time. I'm so excited. I'm so stoked. Now I got to do the same thing for online. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell all your friends and family about it. Let's grow. And this shows you right now that hard work and study, you can grow and reach your goals. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.